Welcome back to The Deep Dive, the show where we give you the shortcut to being, well, genuinely well-informed. We dig into some really complex source material and try to distill it into something you can actually use.
And today, we are diving right into something that's become just paramount for any modern professional. We're talking about advanced communication, specifically C2 level English in, the high-stakes world of a remote job interview.
It's so true. The whole landscape has shifted, hasn't it? I mean, we spend way less time in a room shaking hands and way more time as, like, a little thumbnail on a screen.
Exactly. And when that little screen is the only window someone has into your competence, your word choice, your tone, how you handle a weird audio lag, all of that isn't just a nice to have anymore.
It's everything. It's the absolute gatekeeper to even getting noticed.
Right, because all those little nonverbal cues we rely on in person, they're gone. You lose the comfortable silences, that easy rapport you build. So clarity, and I think more importantly, nuance, that has to do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, if you misspeak or you sound, I don't know, a bit too aggressive or maybe too passive, there's no easy way to walk that back, especially on these international remote teams where cultural signals can get crossed so easily.
Well, that's why our source material for this deep dive is so fascinating. We've been looking at a mock C2 English job interview for a remote digital marketing specialist role. It's a conversation between the candidate, her name is Sophie, and the interviewer, David.
And what's so great about this source is that it's not just a vocabulary test, right?
Yeah, it's really a masterclass in strategic communication. It's about how to use language to actually achieve a goal, which is, the real definition of professional fluency. It's not just about knowing a lot of words.
So our mission today is pretty laser focused. We're going to unpack the key moments from this interview. We're not just looking at what Sophie said, but, how she said it, how she structured her answers, the specific language she chose.
And all those subtle little techniques she used to project, well, a huge amount of confidence and professional competence.
Yeah, this is basically your guide to understanding what fluency looks like at the very highest level of the professional world.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's start right at the very beginning. Because in a remote interview, the foundation is all technical. I mean, we've all been there, right? The frozen screen, the audio feedback.
Oh, yeah.
And these little hiccups in the first 30 seconds can just completely derail the impression we're trying to make.
It creates immediate doubt. And we see that in the mock interview. The very first thing that happens is a little tech issue. David, the interviewer, has to prompt her. He says, "I can see your video's off. Would you mind turning on your camera?"
Right, and a nervous candidate, they might start apologizing a lot or fumbling or even just panicking, thinking, oh, great, I've already blown it.
But Sophie's response is it's so smooth. She just says, "Oh, sure. There we go. Can you see me now?"
So simple. No big apology, not defensive, just polite and solution-oriented.
And that projects immediate competence. It's a tiny little demonstration that she can handle an unexpected problem without getting flustered. It's like a micro test of her composure.
And you just know the interviewer's thinking, okay, this is probably how she'd handle a minor client crisis too, with calm professionalism.
It just drills home that baseline need,
Yeah.
Check your tech. Check your lighting, have your camera ready. These things feel mundane, but they are the first signal you send about how diligent you are. They're the new nonverbal cues.
Totally. So once they clear that little technical hurdle, the interviewer moves straight to the classic opener. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
And this isn't just small talk, right? This is a huge strategic opportunity for the candidate to frame the entire conversation.
And Sophie's response here was just textbook, a perfect example of immediate relevance. She didn't waste a single second on backstory that didn't matter.
Nope. She hit the three crucial points right away. First, her academic background marketing degree. Second, her experience graduated 3 years ago.
And third, her professional focus, and this is key, she gets specific. Digital marketing, with a focus on social media campaigns and content strategy.
That structure is so powerful. By narrowing it down immediately to social media and content, she's signaling, I read the job description, I know why I'm here. It shows she's prepared and efficient.
She completely avoided that amateur mistake of, well, ever since I was a child, I've loved.
Right, or just giving some vague answer. She treated the question like a professional elevator pitch, proving she can take a complex topic, her whole career, and distill it into a clear, concise package. That's a skill in itself.
So then David, the interviewer, he goes a layer deeper. He asks, what inspired you to choose this career path? And this is where Sophie gives what I'd call a really compelling aha. moment.
Yeah, this is where a less skilled speaker, even a fluent one, might give a generic answer. Something like, oh, I enjoy communicating, or I like making ads.
Which is fine, but it's totally forgettable.
Exactly. Sophie anchors her motivation to a specific, almost intellectual turning point. She starts by saying she's always been fascinated by how brands communicate with people.
Which again is okay, but then comes the good part.
Then comes the anchor. She mentions a specific university class she took on consumer behavior, where things just clicked for her. That was the moment she understood the strategic depth behind it all.
And that one little detail, that specific class where it all clicked, it transforms her motivation from just a casual interest into like a real origin story.
It really does. It makes her passion sound so much more compelling because it's rooted in this moment of academic discovery. It suggests her career choice was deliberate, not just something she fell into.
I do wonder, though, how much detail is too much there. If she'd gone on for 5 minutes about that class, it would have been a disaster.
That's a fantastic point, and it gets to the heart of C2 level pacing. She kept the anecdote incredibly brief. It was literally one sentence about the class and then a quick statement about the realization it gave her. The goal is to provide a compelling detail, not a full-blown story.
So it showed she's good at self-editing, too. She knows how to make a point without dragging it out.
Exactly. An awareness of the other person's time.
Okay, so since this is an advanced English role, the language proficiency question was inevitable. How do you talk about your own C2 skills without sounding like you're bragging, or on the flip side, too hesitant?
Well, Sophie uses that same structured approach again. She lays out a clear three-part learning journey. First, she mentions the foundation, starting in school.
Standard enough.
Then part two, she talks about her self-driven improvement. This is where it gets interesting. She mentions watching series and movies without subtitles and using language exchange apps.
I like that because it shows initiative. The shift from passive learning in a classroom to active immersion, like turning subtitles off and forcing yourself to practice, that signals real dedication.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And then she immediately pivots to the third and most important part, her current operational confidence level. And she backs it up with the one piece of evidence that a company actually cares about.
Which is?
That she communicates with international clients daily, both in writing and on video calls.
So that's the critical piece. She's not just saying, I passed a test or I have a C2 certificate. She's saying, my English proficiency is already integrated into a high-stakes daily professional workflow.
That's precisely what a global remote company needs to hear. They need to know that your language skill is a transparent tool for you, not a potential barrier to getting work done.
Okay, so moving into the core experience part of the interview, David asks her about her communication style. And again, this is a chance to show more than just fluency. It's a test of emotional intelligence.
And her answer was so sophisticated because she gave it in 3 layers. She said she's clear, direct, and empathetic.
Empathy, that's a big one.
It's maybe the single biggest marker of C2 level communication in a professional setting. It signals that you don't just speak well, you actually consider the other person's perspective and how they'll receive your message.
And then she added that crucial insight about adaptability. She says she's good at adapting my communication style depending on who I'm talking to. For a remote worker who's juggling different people all the time, that's a massive skill.
It's the difference between talking at someone and talking with them, isn't it? And she gave concrete examples. She talked about how she'd adjust her tone for a creative team member versus, say, a client who's really focused on the numbers.
Right. With the creative, you can be more expansive and inspirational. With the client, you need to be tight, structured, and focused on results.
And the fact that she can articulate that difference shows a very high level of self-awareness. The interview isn't just testing, can you speak English? It's testing, can you manage complex professional relationships in English?
So she then gets into the details of her last job, a digital marketing specialist at a tech company. And the substance she provides here is really important to look at.
Yes. She lists her core responsibilities.
Right.
Managing their social media, creating content calendars, designing posts, analyzing metrics.
All the standard stuff for that role. But then she added a really crucial strategic layer.
She did. She mentioned coordinating with the design team to ensure brand alignment.
And that detail about cross-functional work is so critical, especially in a remote job. It proves she wasn't just working in a silo.
Exactly. It shows she understands that a marketing campaign is a whole organizational effort, not just one person's to-do list. And doing that kind of coordination remotely, making sure everyone's aligned without being in the same room, That's notoriously difficult. So her mentioning it shows she has experience with that complexity.
So after she lists her duties, David asks about her key learnings from the role. This is where you move from just listing tasks to showing you have a real growth mindset.
And she gave two incredibly valuable learning points. The first one was more operational, but it's essential for remote work. She said she learned how to prioritize tasks when you have multiple projects running at the same time.
Which is basically the core skill of remote work, right? No one is looking over your shoulder. You have to be a master of self-management.
But it was her second learning point that really elevated her answer into that strategic sphere. She talked about interpreting data literacy.
That's a great phrase, data literacy.
It's huge. She didn't just say she analyzed metrics. She defined data literacy as understanding what the numbers are actually telling you about your audience's behavior.
Yeah.
And then she made that key distinction about moving beyond surface-level vanity metrics.
Okay, let's unpack that a little for you. What's the real difference between a vanity metric and, actionable data literacy in her field?
Well, vanity metrics are the things that look good on a report but don't really mean much for the business. Things like how many likes a post got or your total number of followers. They make you feel good, but they don't necessarily drive sales.
Right. So what's the actionable data she's talking about?
Actionable data would be things like the conversion rate from a specific ad, or the cost per acquisition of a new customer, or the click-through rate on a call to action. She's showing she understands that the data has to tell a story about behavior that impacts the business, not just a story about popularity.
So she's positioning herself as a strategist, not just someone who schedules posts.
Exactly. She interprets data. She doesn't just report it.
Okay, that distinction is huge. Now let's get to what is probably the cornerstone of telling a professional story. The STAR method. Situation, task, action, result.
Yes.
When she was asked to describe a challenge she overcame, she didn't just tell a random story. She delivered a structured case study.
This is where that C2 proficiency really merges with strategic presentation. For a high-level interview, this structure is basically non-negotiable. It shows you can organize your thoughts under pressure.
So let's break down her story about the failed campaign. How did she set up the situation and the task to establish the stakes?
She created a high-stakes scenario right away, the situation. They'd launched a new campaign, and after 2 days, the engagement was, in her words, way lower than expected. And crucially, she added that they'd invested a significant budget.
So high investment, rapid failure, that creates instant tension.
It does.
Yeah.
And the implied task was clear. Figure out why it's failing and pivot fast to save the budget and the campaign's reputation.
Now, in the action part of her story, what really stood out to me was this one small detail. She said, "I didn't panic," which was hard.
Oh, that's such a brilliant observation. Because that little self-aware comment does so much work. It humanizes her, and it shows she's conscious of the professional need to stay calm.
The interviewer is testing her behavior, not just the steps she took.
Exactly. Anyone can list steps. But a C2 candidate talks about the meta skill required to execute those steps. So after acknowledging the emotion, she acted decisively. She gathered the team, she analyzed the data, which connects back to her data literacy point, and they figured out the messaging wasn't connecting.
And the action they took was swift. Adjusted the ad copy, changed the visuals, retargeted the ads. It shows agility. No waiting around for a week of meetings.
And then the all-important result, the R. She says, within a week, we saw engagement increase by about 40%.
A quantifiable outcome, that's the key.
It's everything. The STAR structure gives her story credibility, but the quantifiable result gives it proof of impact. She didn't just fix a problem. She measured the fix and achieved a significant positive result.
And the interviewer even summarizes it for her. He says, so you basically had to pivot quickly under pressure. And she just confirms, exactly. It taught me that flexibility is key. That whole exchange perfectly demonstrates her competence.
It really does. Its storytelling is evidence.
So now we can shift from the big strategic structures to the microscopic linguistic details that really signal C2 mastery. We're moving from what she said to the absolute precision of how she said it. Let's start with a really crucial one. Hedging and softening language.
Oh, this is so vital. And it's a huge cultural marker in the professional world. In a lot of English-speaking cultures, especially ones that value collaboration, making really strong, direct, declarative statements can come off as arrogant or rigid.
Right, like you're not open to being challenged. Hedging language is the antidote to that. It makes you sound more collaborative.
And more humble, which is key. Sophie constantly used hedging phrases like, I'd say, or I think, or probably, before she stated a firm opinion,
Let's look at an example. When David asked for her biggest strength, a more direct speaker might just say, "My biggest strength is my attention to detail."
which can sound a little confrontational, can't it? It's like you're daring the other person to disagree with this fact you've just stated about yourself.
But Sophie said, "I'd say my biggest strength is probably my attention to detail." Why do those two little words, "I'd say" and "probably," make such a massive rhetorical difference?
Well, I'd say frames it as her own reflective observation, not as an objective, unassailable truth. And probably introduces a tiny bit of subjectivity. It subtly invites the interviewer into a conversation rather than just making a declaration.
It signals a certain professional maturity then, like she recognizes that her own assessment of her strengths is just one data point, and the hiring team will make the final call.
That's a great way to put it. It shows she values input. And you see this a lot when people are proposing a new idea at work. Instead of saying, we must do this, a C2 professional will say, I might suggest that we could consider trying this, perhaps as a test. It just lowers the emotional barrier for everyone else to engage with the idea.
Okay, so that's hedging. What about linguistic technique number 2? Using modal verbs for politeness. This feels like a simple grammar trick, but it has a huge impact on your professional polish.
A huge impact. It's often the subtle difference between sounding demanding and sounding cooperative. Modals like would and could just soften the intent.
Can you give us a direct comparison?
Sure, when she was asked about an area for improvement, a less polished speaker might say, I want to improve my delegation skills. The word want is very strong, almost a bit juvenile in this context.
But Sophie used the softer, more aspirational phrasing, "I'd like to improve." The would like is much more professional.
It is, and we saw again in the question she asked at the end. She didn't ask, what do you expect from me, or what will I achieve? She used the conditional tense. What would you expect, or how would the team collaborate?
So using could, would, or might instead of can, will, or must, it signals respect and formality. You're proposing a hypothetical scenario rather than demanding a concrete answer.
Exactly. It shows you understand the professional boundaries of the conversation.
Okay, so then there's just pure grammar precision. You mentioned the importance of a consistent past tense when she was telling her STAR method story. Why is that so critical? It seems like a small thing.
Well, on the surface, it's about avoiding confusion, obviously.
Hmm.
But the deeper C2 insight is that it's about managing the listener's cognitive load.
Cognitive load. Tell me more about that.
If a speaker starts mixing their tenses, if they say, we launched the campaign and then we are noticing that engagement is low, it forces the listener's brain to work a little bit harder to sort out the timeline. It's a tiny distraction, but it's a distraction nonetheless.
So inconsistent grammar literally makes it harder for the other person to listen to you.
Precisely. By maintaining that clean, consistent past simple tense, we launched, we noticed, we realized, she allows the listener to focus 100% on the strategic content of her story. Flawless grammar and storytelling is a quiet signal that the mechanics of the language are automatic for you, which frees up your brain to focus on the high-level stuff.
It's a signal of mastery.
Okay, let's pivot to a really tricky area. Talking about your weaknesses. This is where so many people trip up. Sophie's choice was very strategic, the art of delegating.
Yes, this is a classic and very effective technique. She chose a weakness that is actually the flip side of a positive trait, in this case, her high standards for quality. She admits, I sometimes struggle with delegating because I want to make sure it's done right.
That framing immediately softens the weakness, but it can also sound a little bit cliche if you just stop there. What was the crucial follow-up she added that made her answer so good?
The follow-up. It showed genuine self-awareness and a focus on the team, not just herself. She added that she's working on trusting my team more and understanding that delegation actually makes the whole team stronger.
So she frames it as a leadership development goal.
Exactly. She understands that her weakness isn't really about quality control. It's about her own tendency to be a bottleneck. And she recognizes the organizational benefit of getting better at it. It's not a personal flaw, it's a professional growth area. A bad answer would have been something like, I'm a perfectionist, or I'm bad at paperwork.
Right. Those are cliches. Her answer addressed a real strategic challenge related to team efficiency and scale.
Okay, finally in this section, let's look at how she handled the topic of feedback and criticism. This reveals so much about professional maturity, especially in a remote setting where tone can get misread so easily.
She framed feedback not as a negative, but as a structured growth opportunity. And she outlined a very systematic 3-step process for how she handles it. First, she takes a moment to process. Second, she asks clarifying questions. And third, she figures out how to apply it going forward.
It's a very logical, non-emotional approach, and she even gave a specific story about feedback she got early in her career. A manager told her that her presentations were too detailed and that people were getting lost.
And she did something really rare and powerful here. She admitted that her initial reaction was defensiveness.
Which is so honest, it makes her sound human.
It does. But then she quickly showed how she moved past that defensiveness. She realized her manager was right, so she shifted her focus to highlighting key takeaways and using more visuals. And the result? Her presentations became much more effective. She demonstrated that she can take uncomfortable feedback, process it logically, and turn it directly into improved performance.
That's the definition of being coachable, isn't it? It's exactly what a manager wants to see.
It's professional excellence right there.
Okay, interviews also get into the more day-to-day aspects of work, like how you stay motivated. This is especially true for remote jobs, which can involve a lot of solitary, sometimes repetitive tasks. This is really a test of your resilience and self-management skills.
And Sophie's answers here were very actionable. She didn't just say, "Oh, I have a positive attitude." She offered concrete strategies. First, she said she challenges herself to be more efficient, to find a slightly different approach to a repetitive task.
I like that. It shows a desire for continuous improvement, even on the boring stuff. She's not someone who's okay with just doing things the way they've always been done.
Second, she maintains her perspective. She reminds herself of the bigger picture, how a routine task like, say, SEO maintenance contributes to a long-term goal like website authority. That ability to connect the mundane to the meaningful is vital for staying motivated.
And her third point was really simple but practical. Just switching up her environment, moving to a different room, putting on different music. Small changes that help break the monotony of working from the same desk every single day.
It shows she's self-aware about her own work habits and how to manage her energy. Then David asked her to define what success in the role would look like. This is a big question. It's testing if she really understands the core demands of the job.
And Sophie didn't just list a bunch of technical skills. She defined the duality of the role. She said success requires a combination of creativity and analytical thinking.
The yin and the yang of modern marketing. You need the big, innovative ideas, but you also have to be able to measure their impact with cold, hard data, and then adjust your strategy based on what you find.
And then she added the one requirement that she said was paramount: adaptability.
Yes. And she explained why. Because, as she put it, the digital landscape is always evolving.
So she's framing the jobs not as mastering a fixed set of skills, but as mastering the art of continuous learning. She understands that in her field, if you're standing still, you're falling behind. That shows real strategic foresight.
So then they move into the alignment section, the classic "why do you want to work here?" question. This is where you prove you've done your homework.
And a generic answer like, "He seemed like a great company," just doesn't cut it.
Not at this level. And her answers were highly specific. First, she mentioned the company's public focus on innovation and creativity, which aligns with her own strengths. Second, she said the fully remote model appealed to her for the flexibility it offers, showing she's bought into the work structure itself.
And her third point was really smart. It tapped right into the company's global identity. She mentioned wanting to work with international clients because she values the diversity of perspectives that brings.
It's a perfect set of 3 customized reasons. Each one reinforces why she is a good fit for this specific company and this specific role.
Next up, the old chestnut. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? This question can be so tricky.
It can. But Sophie's answer was both ambitious and grounded. Her goal was clear: a leadership role, managing a team, mentoring junior marketers. But it was the nuance she added that was the real C2 level touch.
She stressed that she wanted to stay hands-on with strategy and creative direction.
Exactly. She explicitly said she didn't want to be completely removed from the actual work. Why is that so important for a candidate to say?
I think it avoids that trap of sounding like you just want to be a manager for the sake of power. It signals that you actually value the craft of the work itself.
It does. It tells the interviewer that she believes the best leaders are the ones who still understand what their team is doing on a day-to-day basis. It projects a kind of servant leadership mentality, and it reassures them that she's not going to get bored as soon as she moves into a purely administrative role.
Okay, and finally, she was asked about her ideal work environment. This is where she can really show her understanding of what makes a high-performing team tick.
And her list was basically a blueprint for a healthy modern team culture. She mentioned clear communication and trust, clear expectations combined with autonomy, which is a clear rejection of micromanagement, and a supportive culture where people feel safe sharing ideas.
And this is where David, the interviewer, actually validates her answer by using the expert term for it, psychological safety.
Yes, that's the strategic connection.
Mm.
Psychological safety is that shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. You won't be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, or mistakes.
And Sophie immediately latches onto that and agrees, saying that when people feel safe to take risks and make mistakes, that's when the best work happens.
I think we need to just pause on that for a second. Why is a candidate bringing up the concept of psychological safety such a powerful C2 level strategic move?
Well, it moves the conversation beyond just her individual performance and into the realm of organizational effectiveness. In a remote team, trust is everything. It's 10 times harder to build than when you're in an office together.
For sure. If you can't trust your colleague to tell you when something's going wrong, or if people are too scared to critique a bad idea, the whole thing falls apart.
So by bringing up this concept, Sophie is signaling that she thinks about the foundations of what makes a team successful, not just about her own list of tasks.
She's essentially saying, I understand the cultural ingredients required for a modern, high-performing, decentralized team to thrive. That's a leadership mindset, no matter what her job title is.
Okay, so as the interview starts to wind down, we get to the part that can often be the biggest differentiator of all, the questions the candidate asks.
Absolutely. The goal here isn't really to get information about vacation days. The goal is to demonstrate your ambition and show that you are already picturing yourself succeeding in the role.
A bad candidate asks about benefits. A strategic candidate asks about performance and collaboration. And Sophie's questions were just perfectly performance-oriented.
Her first question. What does success look like in this role during the first 6 months? Why is that such a powerful question to ask?
Because it forces the interviewer to give you a clear set of expectations and metrics right from the start. By asking it, Sophie is immediately aligning herself with the company's goals for the position. She's basically saying, give me the scorecard, tell me how to win here.
It shows drive, a focus on results, and a desire for clarity. And David's expected answer gives her concrete milestones. Get comfortable with our systems, build relationships, start contributing ideas, and manage one project on your own by the 6-month mark. She now have a clear roadmap.
Her second question was about team dynamics, which is so important for a remote role. How does the team typically collaborate on projects?
This showed she cares about process and efficiency. She wants to understand the balance between live, synchronous meetings and asynchronous work through documents and messages.
Right. And David's answer confirmed they have a balanced approach. A couple of video meetings a week, but mostly asynchronous work to respect different time zones. So her questions confirm that she cares about both the what's and the how of success.
It shows she's thinking about how to integrate smoothly into their existing structure. And then there's the final, often overlooked, rule of remote interviewing.
Final professionalism.
Relentless professionalism right up until the very end. She thanked David sincerely. She said she enjoyed the conversation, and she kept that polished, engaged demeanor. The interview isn't over until that video call is disconnected.
You never drop your guard or rush the goodbye. It's the last impression you leave.
It is.
So let's try to bring this all home with some core actionable takeaways for you. What we've seen is that mastering C2 communication for an interview like this isn't just about using fancy vocabulary, it's about deploying a whole strategic and linguistic toolkit.
Yeah, we've basically synthesized 6 primary strategies that separate someone who's just proficient in English from someone who's genuinely strategic.
Okay, number 1, use hedging language. Those little phrases like I'd say, I think, or probably, they show you're collaborative and humble, not arrogant, which is just a non-negotiable in most professional English-speaking environments.
Number 2, elaborate strategically. You have to avoid one-sentence answers. Always provide substance, provide context, and use specific examples to back up what you're saying, like when she explained the difference between vanity metrics and real data literacy.
Number 3, use the STAR method flawlessly. When you're talking about a challenge or a success, you have to structure it. Situation, task, action, and a quantifiable result. It's just clear, results-oriented storytelling that proves your competence.
4, ask thoughtful, performance-oriented questions. You have to focus on success metrics. How do I win in this role?
Yeah.
And on team collaboration. You just cannot be the person asking about salary or benefits at this stage.
Number 5, master your tenses and your modal verbs. That consistent past simple tense makes your stories easy to follow, and it signals cognitive mastery. And then using professional modals like would and like to just gives you that C2 level polish and respectful tone.
And finally, number 6, maintain relentless professionalism across all channels. That means your tech needs to be stable, your verbal communication needs to be clear, and you have to show genuine enthusiasm right up until the call ends. Every single detail matters.
What this whole deep dive really revealed, I think, is that in these advanced settings, the interview isn't just testing your technical skills like Sophie's marketing knowledge, it's testing your meta skills.
Totally. Things like her self-awareness in talking about delegation, her strategic thinking when she brought up psychological safety, and her linguistic nuance with all that hedging language.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to take away. If these soft strategic skills, the way you frame your weaknesses, the cultural nuance in your language, your understanding of team trust, if these are now the real markers of high performance,
Then how might focusing on mastering these meta skills give you the biggest return in your own professional life? Maybe even more than just getting another technical certification for your job.
it's not just about what you know anymore, is it? It's about how strategically and how fluently you can communicate that knowledge.
That is a deep dive for another day. Thanks for joining us.
We'll catch you on the next one. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're not talking about the prep work. We're not talking about, nailing the first impression.
No.
We are diving into that phase that I think most of us just completely
We
overlook.
breathe a sigh of relief and we think it's over.
Exactly. What happens the moment that interview ends?
It's such a crucial pivot point. So many candidates, even really, really qualified ones, they see the interview as the finish line. They put all their energy into that 1 hour, and then they just coast.
Right, and you think, okay, done, nailed it, now I just wait.
Yeah, and our sources, they make it just abundantly clear. The evaluation process is absolutely, definitively not over when you click end call or, walk out the door.
That initial feeling of relief, that phew, that's over. You're saying that's actually the danger zone.
That's precisely it. This whole post-interview stage, it's really just an extended part of the professional audition.
An audition for what, though? You've already answered all the questions.
It demonstrates a whole suite of soft skills that you just can't assess in a normal Q&A. Things like attention to detail, sustained professionalism, even just basic respect for their organization and their time.
Okay, that makes sense. This is where, like you said, even candidates with these flawless resumes, this is where they fall short.
It happens all the time. They treat the follow-up as, a mere formality, a box-ticking exercise.
Okay, gotta send the thank you note. Check.
Exactly. Instead of seeing it for what it is, which is a really high-leverage communication opportunity, every single email, every interaction, every moment of patience or impatience.
Ooh, especially that one.
Right. It all provides a data point to the hiring team about what kind of colleague you're going to be.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's make sure that we are all operating at a level of communication that is, genuinely persuasive and memorable. Our mission for this deep dive is to master that strategic follow-up, to turn what feels like a really anxious waiting game into calculated, effective action.
And we've broken this down into 3 major areas. First, we are going to deconstruct the non-negotiable thank you email. How to shift it from just a note of courtesy to a persuasive argument for why you're the right person.
Okay, I like that. A persuasive argument. What's next?
Second, we're going to tackle the psychology and maybe more importantly, the timing of that agonizing waiting period.
Yes. When to nudge and how to nudge.
Exactly. When and how to send that professional nudge. And then third, we'll cover the really advanced skill of responding gracefully and strategically to both job offers and, crucially, to rejections.
And the big goal here, as you said, it's actually bigger than just landing this one job.
It is. It's about looking at these steps as essential professional skills that fortify your reputation for the long term. You are building your professional brand one follow-up at a time.
All right. Let's start with that first big action item, the one that kicks this whole process off.
Let's do it.
Part 1, the strategic thank you email. Okay, let's start with a really foundational question. It might feel obvious, but I think we need to ask it. Is the thank you email still, truly mandatory in this day and age?
Yes.
Can't a hiring manager just assume I'm grateful for their time?
It is an absolute, resounding, non-negotiable step. There's just no scenario where skipping it reflects positively on you. It just doesn't happen.
So even if the interview went amazingly well, you had a great rapport.
Even then. Think about it. If you're comparing 2 equally qualified candidates and one sent a really thoughtful follow-up and the other just went silent,
The one who sent the email looks more engaged.
more engaged, more professional, and more respectful of the interviewer's time. It's an easy tiebreaker, and you don't want to lose on an easy tiebreaker.
What's really interesting here is how our sources immediately elevate this beyond just, simple courtesy.
Oh, it's so much more than that.
It's not just polite. It's a high-leverage strategic move. So what are the core functions this email has to achieve? And you said ideally it's sent within 24 hours.
Yeah, 24 hours is the gold standard.
Yeah.
And it serves three critical functions all at the same time.
Okay.
First, of course, it shows genuine gratitude for their time, their effort. That's the baseline. You have to do that.
Right. Table stakes.
Table stakes. Second, and this is crucial, it reiterates your strong, continued interest in the role. It tells them, yes, after hearing everything, I'm still very excited.
Okay.
But the third function, this is the one that really transforms the email from, polite boilerplate into a strategic tool.
That is.
It provides one last intentional chance to make a truly memorable impression by reinforcing your specific fit for what they actually need right now.
I think this is where we need to spend some real time, because the goal is to move beyond that generic politeness.
I enjoyed our chat.
Yes, thanks for your time. I enjoyed chatting with you. If you just send those two lines, you've completely missed the whole point.
You've missed the entire opportunity. Absolutely. The simple thank you is just your ticket to entry. The persuasive follow-up, that's your final sales pitch.
So it has to be personal.
Deeply personalized.
Yeah.
And tactical. It needs to reflect that you are actively listening. And it is to show that you're already thinking about how you would solve their challenges.
Not just waiting for instructions if you get the job.
Exactly. We're moving from just a courteous interaction to highly intentional, high-leverage communication. It's about designing a message that has a very specific, desired outcome.
I love that clarification. Okay, so let's break down the actual structure. Our sources provide a great template using this fictional candidate, Sophie Chen.
Right. And she's interviewing for a digital marketing specialist position with an interviewer named David. It's a perfect blueprint.
So where do we start? The very, very top.
The structure begins at the top, and we cannot overlook the mechanics. Start with the subject line. It has to be explicit.
Not cute. Not clever.
No. For Sophie, it was, thank you, digital marketing specialist interview. No vagueness, no informal, hey, or anything like that.
Why is that so important?
Think about a hiring manager's inbox. It's a disaster. Yours needs to be professional and immediately identify who you are, the purpose of the email, and the specific role. It ensures it doesn't get lost or, flagged as spam.
Simple, clear, and efficient. Okay. Then, the standard personalized greeting, Dear David.
Right.
But the real strategic work, that starts in the body of the email. How does Sophie move past that standard boring script in that crucial opening paragraph?
She doesn't just reiterate the job title. She doesn't say, thanks for the interview for the marketing job. She references a specific, meaty point from their actual conversation.
So not something generic.
No, Sophie didn't mention, the nice view from the office or the great coffee in the lobby. She focused on a concrete business pain point they actually discussed.
Which was?
The challenge of pivoting campaigns under pressure due to rapid market shifts.
Wait, hold on a second. Let's pause there. Isn't that a bit risky? Referencing a weakness or a problem the company has, couldn't that make the interviewer focus on the negative?
That's a great question, and it really gets to the nuance of this.
I mean, why is citing a challenge more effective than just saying, I loved hearing about your exciting Q4 launch?
Okay, so when you reference an existing company challenge, like pivoting campaigns under pressure, it does several things instantly that referencing a positive just doesn't.
Okay.
First, it proves she was deeply engaged. She was listening to their high-level concerns, not just waiting for her turn to talk about her own resume.
It shows she was listening to their problem.
Their problems. Second, it demonstrates that she actually understands the complexity of the role. It shows empathy for David's daily stress. But most importantly, by choosing a challenge, she immediately frames the rest of her email as the solution. She's not just thanking him, she's actively engaging in problem solving before she's even hired.
I see. It establishes a context of utility. You heard their operational headache, and now you're basically offering them the aspirin.
Exactly. And that leads directly to the next part, the strategic reinforcement, which is really the heart of the email.
So this is where Sophie links that specific challenge, the need for agile campaign adjustment, directly back to her own skills.
Right back to her candidate profile and her core skills.
So she follows up by connecting that challenge to her experience in, data analysis and agile strategy adjustment, which, she obviously would have mentioned during the interview itself.
Precisely. This is the moment she shows her immediate contribution potential. She's essentially saying, I heard your specific problem, and I already have the specific demonstrated tools to fix it.
That's a huge shift in tone.
It's a profound shift. It moves the conversation from the timid, I hope I'm qualified enough, to the confident, I know I can contribute value from day one because I've done this exact thing successfully before.
And this is where the specific wording, the actual language you choose, matters immensely.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's analyze the emotional and psychological impact of what our sources called the power phrases. For example, using a phrase like, resonated with me.
That phrasing is so deliberate and sophisticated. Resonated with me is just worlds better than I agreed with or I like that part.
Why? What's the difference?
It shows a genuine intellectual and professional connection. It suggests that their mission or that specific challenge, it struck a deep chord with you. It implies a much deeper alignment with the company's vision. It's an emotional connection to the work itself, which, for a hiring manager, signals higher engagement and better retention potential.
And then there was that powerful concluding statement about her commitment, something like, this experience solidified my belief in my fit for this position.
Yeah, that phrase just conveys such strong, renewed confidence. It's incredibly persuasive.
It's not just saying, I'm still interested.
No, it's saying, after hearing the real details firsthand from you, my initial positive assessment of this opportunity has only been strengthened and confirmed.
And from hiring managers' perspective.
Think about it from their side. They are looking for confidence. They're looking for certainty. When a candidate can convey that level of conviction, it actually makes the hiring decision easier for them. It reduces their perceived risk in choosing you.
So to just recap this first crucial step, the strategic thank you email is not a formality. It's a meticulously constructed document.
A strategic document.
Designed to reinforce your qualifications, demonstrate that you are actively listening, and solidify that professional alignment. And you do all of that within 24 hours.
And, crucially, it uses the interviewer's own words and their own pain points to make your final argument for you. It perfectly sets the tone, demonstrating your professionalism under self-imposed pressure.
And that professionalism is about to be immediately tested in the very next phase.
The waiting game.
Part 2, the waiting game. Okay, this is where the emotional investment really starts to challenge that professional facade you've built.
This is the hard part.
You've sent the perfect, persuasive email, but now you are just tethered to your inbox. You're refreshing constantly.
Right. And acknowledging the difficulty of that, acknowledging that relentless urge to follow up every single day, that's really the first step toward managing it effectively.
Because the silence feels personal.
It feels deeply personal. It can feel like a soft rejection, or worse, that you've just been completely forgotten. But acting on that emotional impulse to push or to pester the hiring team with constant just checking in emails.
That's the worst.
It's the quickest way to undermine all the great strategic work you've put in up to this point. That eagerness just reads as desperation.
So if we take the emotional reaction out of the equation for a second, what is the golden rule of timing when you're in this anxious waiting phase?
The rule is, well, it's simple and it's unwavering. It is crucial to remain patient and professional by strictly respecting the timeline they gave you.
Whatever they said in the interview.
Whatever they said. If the interviewer told you, we'll be in touch by the end of next week, you absolutely must hold to that. This is non-negotiable. Pestering them before that deadline expires is just seen as disrespectful of their schedule and their internal process.
Okay, let's talk specifics because this is where people trip up. Let's say they interview you on a Thursday.
Okay.
And they say, we'll have a decision for you by the end of the following Tuesday. When is the absolute earliest I should even consider sending a follow-up?
Not until Wednesday morning.
Not Tuesday evening.
Absolutely not. If Tuesday is their deadline, any contact on Tuesday is perceived as rushing them. The source material is very, very explicit about this. Pestering is identified as a major red flag.
Why so major?
Because it signals poor boundary management and maybe a lack of respect for authority or existing processes, and those are not traits that translate well into a team environment. You have to remember, they are likely interviewing other people, they're debriefing with the team, they're dealing with their own massive workloads. The last thing you want to do is become another annoyance in their inbox.
My gut reaction, I have to admit, would be to send a quick email right at 5:01 p.m. on Tuesday.
I know.
Just a little, hey, just checking in. But you're saying even that is too soon.
It is. You have to wait for the timeline to explicitly expire. Give them that space, because if they miss their own deadline, there's probably a good reason for it. The delay might be a genuine complication. A key stakeholder is out sick, or there was an unexpected internal fire they had to put out.
And by waiting patiently.
By waiting, you demonstrate maturity. You show that you understand that their world doesn't revolve entirely around your application. It's a subtle but powerful signal.
Okay, so let's say the timeline has now expired. It's Wednesday morning. You've heard absolutely nothing. This is the moment for that polite, gentle follow-up.
This is the moment.
What is the precise goal of this professional nudge?
The goal is very precise and it's minimalist. All you want to do is remind them of your sustained interest without sounding demanding or, worse, accusing them of being late.
It's a fine line.
It's a very fine, nuanced line to walk, and the tone is absolutely everything. You want to appear proactive, not pushy.
Let's analyze the template for this follow-up email. How do we make sure that the tone is light, professional, and explicitly non-accusatory? How do we avoid any hint of, hey, where's my update?
It starts, again, with the subject line. Keep it clean. Following up digital marketing specialist interview. It just maintains that professional link.
Okay.
In the body, we have to rely very heavily on strategic softening phrases. The email should start with a polite salutation like, Dear David, and then immediately follow it with a phrase like, I hope you're having a productive week.
That opening, I hope you're having a productive week, is brilliant.
It is.
Because it immediately frames the communication as just a simple check-in from a considerate colleague. It's not a demand. It completely diffuses that tension.
Precisely. And then the purpose of the email must also be softened. So Sophie writes, I'm writing to briefly follow up regarding the timeline for the digital marketing specialist position.
The word briefly seems really important there.
It's a high-leverage word. It signals that you are mindful of their limited time, that you're not expecting a long, detailed response, and that lowers the barrier for them to just shoot back a quick reply.
And then the core message has to pivot immediately back to enthusiasm, not impatience.
Absolutely. She reiterates her strong interest. She says something like, I remain highly enthusiastic about this opportunity. This frames the whole follow-up as an expression of your continued excitement, not as a consequence of your impatience.
And the conclusion is that classic, polite closing.
Yes, the one that puts the focus back on serving their needs.
Which is, please let me know if there is any additional information I can provide. That phrase is a masterstroke.
It really is. It elegantly shifts the focus away from your need for an answer to their potential need for more information. You're subtly suggesting that maybe you are the bottleneck.
Right, like maybe you're just waiting for another reference from me.
Exactly. Is there something I forgot to send? It makes the whole interaction feel collaborative, not confrontational. The entire message is just a gentle nudge, designed simply to get your name back on their immediate radar as a highly professional and still very eager candidate.
It's really the difference between asking, when will you decide, and offering, how can I help you decide?
That's a perfect way to put it.
That is truly sophisticated communication, especially in what is a high-stress, silent situation. Okay, now let's move to the ultimate moment of truth.
The outcome.
In part 3, handling the outcome. Both the high of an offer and the challenge of a rejection.
In this stage, it requires just as much strategic thought as the interview itself, because how you handle this final communication, it reflects profoundly on your judgment and your long-term professional character.
Let's start with the best-case scenario. Handling the job offer gracefully. The excitement is real. You get the phone call. They say, we'd love to welcome you aboard. My initial impulse, and I think for most people, is just to shout, yes, when do I start?
Right. The relief is huge.
So why is that immediate, enthusiastic acceptance often the wrong move?
Because it's impulsive. And impulsiveness in a professional context can be interpreted negatively. Now, don't get me wrong, gratitude and excitement are absolutely necessary.
Of course.
But an immediate yes on the spot, it just undermines your professional standing a little bit. You can signal a lack of professional due diligence.
As if you haven't even bothered to read the contract or think about the whole package.
Exactly. And that impulsiveness, it might just raise a little subconscious flag for them about your general decision-making abilities.
So what is the advanced approach to receiving an offer? How do we balance that genuine excitement with professionalism?
Okay, so there's a two-step process. First, you must express immediate, genuine gratitude and excitement. That's the emotional warmth the hiring team wants and needs to hear.
You want to validate their choice.
You want to validate their choice. Use phrases like, "Thank you so much for the offer. I am genuinely thrilled about the possibility of joining your team." Makes them feel good about selecting you.
But immediately after that emotional warmth comes the strategic pause, the critical, non-emotional step.
Exactly. You must ask for a reasonable amount of time to review the details.
How much time is reasonable?
Usually 48 to 72 hours is standard. You can phrase it professionally. To ensure I give this exciting offer the proper consideration it deserves, would it be possible to have until Friday afternoon to review the details and provide you with my final decision?
And that's not seen as you being hesitant.
Not at all. It's standard professional practice. It shows that you're thoughtful, not impulsive, and that you treat serious decisions with the gravity they deserve.
And the unspoken benefit here, which is huge, is that asking for that time gives you the necessary opening for potential negotiation.
That's the key.
If you accept instantly on the phone, that negotiation window often just slams shut before you even realize you had any leverage.
That is the essential insight. That window of time, that 48 hours, allows you to calmly review the total compensation package, the salary, the benefits, the starting date, and, critically, to structure any potential counteroffer.
And if you do choose to negotiate, which you said is an advanced skill every professional needs to master, there are rules.
Very strict principles of professional conduct, yes.
Yeah.
The negotiation cannot be based on personal need.
Right, not, I need to pay for my kids' braces or I want a new car.
Correct. It has
Yeah.
to be objective. You must back up your request with objective, external information. Your leverage has to be based on two things: market data for that role in your specific area, and the quantifiable, unique value you bring to their organization.
So you never base it on your current salary.
And never. Or your personal desires. You focus strictly on your future contribution and the established market compensation standards for that contribution.
This means you need to do your homework beforehand. How should a candidate effectively research market data before they even get to this offer stage?
You really should have done this research even before the first interview, but now is the time to finalize it. You need to use reputable, high-quality sources, industry salary reports, major salary websites like Glassdoor or pay-scale-specific job boards.
And you're looking for a range.
You're looking for the range for similar roles in similar-sized companies in your city.
Right.
And you want to identify the median salary and, importantly, the top quartile. Your negotiation goal should be anchored in that top quartile, assuming your skills and experience place you there.
Let's analyze the specific, effective phrasing for a negotiation. Let's use our Sophie Chen example again. How does she anchor her request confidently, citing her research?
A great opening might be something like, "Based on my extensive research into the industry standard for a digital marketing specialist role, with these advanced responsibilities in this market, I was hoping for a compensation package in the range of X."
It's a clear, confident statement, and it's anchored in data, not emotion.
Right. And then she needs to immediately connect that desired number to her specific demonstrated value.
The value to them.
The value to them, exactly. She immediately follows up. "Given my specialized experience in data analysis and agile strategy adjustment, which align directly with the critical need to pivot campaigns under pressure that we discussed, I feel this level of compensation is warranted. Is there any flexibility on the base compensation, or perhaps a signing bonus to bridge the difference?"
That's so good. You're framing the request not as a demand, but as a fair market exchange for specialized, high-value skills that you know they specifically need.
You are literally reminding them exactly why they chose you over all the other candidates in the first place.
So this entire sequence, the gratitude, asking for time, researching the data, and then negotiating based on objective value, it just reinforces this image of a strategic, high-value candidate who manages these interactions with complete poise and competence.
It sets the stage for a long professional relationship built on mutual respect. But now, we have to pivot to the tough scenario,
Right.
the one that requires perhaps even more professionalism: the rejection.
Addressing the sting of the no. Our sources, they warn explicitly against burning bridges. They call it an amateur move. Why is it so paramount to maintain your professionalism when you're facing that kind of disappointment?
Because the professional world, particularly within specific industries, is incredibly small. It just is. Careers are long, and people move around all the time.
That hiring manager might pop up somewhere else in a few years.
Exactly. If you respond to a rejection with anger or bitterness, or you just vanish into radio silence, you're not just closing the door on that company forever. You're establishing a negative reputation with that individual hiring manager who might move to a company you do want to join next year.
So the goal with the rejection response is to leave a lasting positive impression. You want the interviewer to remember you kindly, even if you weren't the right fit for this role right now.
That's the entire goal.
But before we get to the template for that, we have to acknowledge how hard that is psychologically. My impulse would be to fire back an email asking why. Why didn't you choose me? Is that ever appropriate?
It's such an understandable human reaction.
Yeah.
But that impulse, it absolutely must be suppressed in that immediate response.
So don't ask for feedback right away.
Not right away. The immediate professional response should only be focused on grace and future connectivity. Asking why or demanding feedback right then and there, it's emotionally charged, and it puts the hiring manager in a really uncomfortable defensive position.
So when can you ask for feedback?
It's much better to schedule a quick, separate informational call for feedback later, maybe a week or two down the road, once the initial dust has settled and you're feeling emotionally neutral about it.
That's a really crucial distinction. Grace now, learning later. Okay, so let's analyze the template. The sources call it the pure class response. How does this strategically manage disappointment while building those future bridges?
It begins by acknowledging the disappointment professionally, but it immediately pivots to gratitude. So Sophie's email might start, "Thank you for letting me know your decision regarding the digital marketing specialist position. While I am naturally disappointed to not be moving forward."
That word naturally is great. It validates the feeling without dwelling on it.
Right, it doesn't let the disappointment dominate the tone of the email.
And then comes the sincere appreciation. So you're thanking them not just for letting you know, but for the whole experience.
Yes, specifically thanking them for the time they invested and for sharing company insights. Sophie might write something like, "It was a real pleasure learning more about your team and the exciting challenges you're tackling. I truly appreciated the opportunity to meet with you and understand your vision for the department."
That shows a genuine non-transactional interest in the company itself, even though you didn't get the job.
Which keeps that professional relationship warm. It's not just about you.
And then finally, the forward-looking conclusion. This is the ultimate strategic move that can turn a definitive no for today into a potential maybe for tomorrow.
This is the high-leverage closing. She first wishes the successful candidate well, which maintains goodwill, and then she makes the strategic request. I would love to stay connected on LinkedIn, and I sincerely hope you will keep me in mind for any future opportunities that may be a good fit as your team grows.
Let's break down the psychology of that request to stay connected. Why is that so effective in this specific scenario?
Because the hiring manager has already done all the heavy lifting of vetting you. They already know your background. They know you interviewed well enough to be a finalist, or at least a very strong contender.
Right. You were almost there.
You were almost there. And they now know you handled disappointment with incredible grace. So by proactively asking to stay connected, you're essentially pre-approving yourself for their future candidate pipeline. You're giving them permission to reach out to you again, which saves them a ton of time and effort when a similar role opens up in 6 months or a year.
You've just leveraged a rejection into an investment in a future professional relationship. You're building your long-term network. That shows true professional maturity.
And it ensures that all the time you spent interviewing wasn't just a sunk cost in a failed application.
Yeah.
It was, in fact, an investment in that hiring manager and that company as a professional contact for the future. And that is the absolute definition of a strategic mindset.
Wow. We have covered the entire life cycle here. From the second the interview ends to the strategic follow-up, the anxiety of the wait, and the high-stakes communication involved in handling both offers and rejections. This has really been a masterclass in maximizing that post-interview advantage.
Let's bring it all home with a concise summary of the critical actions. We've really distilled this whole post-interview strategy down to 4 core pillars that you have to implement for success.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, always send a personalized, highly intentional thank you email within 24 hours. Remember that Sophie Chen model. Reference their specific conversational pain points and link them directly to your unique, quantifiable value.
Got it. Number 2.
Second, while you're waiting, you have to demonstrate emotional maturity by strictly respecting the timeline they gave you. Patience is a key professional virtue, and that impulse to pester them is a serious red flag. Only follow up gently with that professional nudge template after the deadline has explicitly passed.
Right. And number 3, the offer.
Third, When you do receive an offer, express that immediate enthusiasm, but always ask for time 48 to 72 hours to review the details. It shows you're thoughtful, it protects your position, and most importantly, it opens that necessary window for negotiation.
And finally, the toughest one.
And fourth, handle any rejection with pure class and professionalism by prioritizing future bridge building. Leverage that rejection to establish yourself in their long-term network for future opportunities.
That takes us right back to that bit of wisdom we identified at the very beginning of this deep dive.
That every single communication you have with a potential employer is part of the interview.
Your professionalism after the conversation is just as critical as your performance during it, and it really does define your entire professional brand.
And this leads us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. We've meticulously analyzed how crucial this strategic, value-linking mindset is when you're pursuing a new job, when the stakes feel the highest.
We've shown how prioritizing this kind of intentional, nuanced communication impacts some of the most important professional decisions you'll make.
But consider this. How can this same mindset be applied? Not just to securing a new role, but to building and sustaining the professional relationships you already have in your current role.
That's a great question.
I mean, if demonstrating professionalism and reinforcing your value after a single high-stakes conversation is so critical for a potential employer, how should you be handling the ongoing daily communication with your current clients, your most critical stakeholders, or even just your colleagues?
Are you being as intentional in your follow-ups after a big project closes?
Exactly. Are you strategically reinforcing your team's value after every successful deliverable? And how do you handle the internal setbacks or disagreements? Do you manage them with the same grace, the same long-term perspective, and the same professionalism we discussed for that pure class response to rejection?
The principles of strategic follow-up. They're fundamentally universal. They're about maintaining a continuously high professional standard and making sure that every interaction, big or small, reinforces your reputation for competence, for foresight, and for poise.
So use these templates, use these strategies to elevate your communication, not just for the next job interview you have, but for every single professional relationship you aim to cultivate and value.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Go apply these insights, and we will catch you next time.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show engineered to deliver you the most actionable intelligence from professional research, bypassing the noise and getting straight to the core strategy. Today, we are undertaking a deep dive into what is, it's arguably the most crucial and intense period of any career transition. We're talking about mastering the first 90 days in a new role.
Right. And this transition from being a candidate to becoming an established contributor, it's the ultimate high-stakes performance review.
Totally.
You may have spent weeks, maybe even months securing that job, celebrating signing the contract, but our research confirms a really vital truth.
Which is?
Securing the job is not the finish line. It is, and this is important, it is merely the starting block for the real marathon.
Exactly. That initial 90-day window, which is so often a probationary period, that is where your long-term reputation is forged.
Absolutely.
It's the period where you validate the, frankly, significant investment the hiring manager made in you and lay the foundation for not just a good start, but an indispensable career.
And if you approach this phase passively, just waiting for instructions, you are squandering the most valuable window of opportunity you will ever have at that company.
You really are.
So our mission for you today is pretty clear. We're extracting the critical step-by-step actions that are required to really dominate this period.
Okay.
We'll look at the necessary preparations you need to make before day one, the strategic listening required during that, chaotic first week, and the specific ways to demonstrate measurable value without overstepping.
Right, without disrupting the existing workflow.
Exactly. This entire 90-day journey is really a complex test of perception management and professional communication strategy.
It's time to move past the basics. Forget waiting for the orientation binder. We're jumping immediately into the pregame strategies, the things that differentiate a capable new employee from a truly strategic professional before they even step foot in the office. Okay, let's unpack this critical pre-boarding phase.
Yep.
So you've successfully navigated the interviews, you've signed the contract, and now you have, 2 or 3 weeks stretching out before your start date.
Right. And the universal temptation is just to decompress, to relax.
Yeah, take a break.
But our findings highlight this is the strategic professional's moment to gain what is, frankly, an unfair advantage.
It's a massive psychological advantage, isn't it?
Huge. Think about it from a manager's perspective. They hire someone, and then they often don't hear a peep from that person until, like, 8:55 a.m. on day one when they show up confused about where to sit,
And that requires immediate hand-holding.
which completely interrupts the manager's already packed schedule.
And what the advanced professional recognizes is that the company, yes, they're excited about you, but they're also incredibly busy. They're preparing your tech, they're managing their existing projects, and just trying to transition workflows seamlessly. If you wait passively, you arrive cold. You're relying completely on your new team to carve out time to spoon-feed you information.
And this is where the simple, yet, incredibly powerful tool of the proactive email comes into play.
Okay.
Our research suggests this is not just a polite gesture, it is a strategic act of separation, and you want to send it, ideally, a week before your official start date.
Let's talk about the specific functions of this email then. Why is it so strategic? What's it actually doing?
Well, first, it broadcasts enthusiasm and preparedness. It immediately differentiates you from the pack.
Right.
Second, and this is key for perception management, it signals to your manager, let's call him David in our example, that you are a self-starter who respects his time by preparing autonomously.
So to bring this to life, let's dissect the specific composition of the sample email provided in our source material. This is the one from the new hire, Sophie, to her manager, David. The language isn't just nice. It's carefully constructed professional rhetoric.
Yeah, we have to analyze the flow. Let's start with the subject line. Looking forward to starting next week.
Simple.
It's positive, it's clear, and it's action-oriented without sounding, administrative. It primes David for positive engagement right away.
Then Sophie immediately addresses the administrative elephant in the room.
Yeah.
She confirms, I've already received the initial onboarding documents from HR and will have them completed before I start.
And that is such a great move.
Why?
Because she is essentially delivering a mini status update that just says, I'm not going to be an administrative drag. The basics are handled.
Ah, okay. That small detail just clears the mental slate for David.
Right. He can now focus on the higher value strategic input rather than chasing forms. It's foundational professionalism. But now we arrive at the key ask.
The payload.
The strategic payload of the email. Sophie writes, if there's any recommended reading or documentation I could review beforehand to help me hit the ground running, please do let me know.
That phrase, to help me hit the ground running, is highlighted in our source material as a hallmark of professional polish.
It is.
We don't need to get caught up in the academic jargon of like C2 level idiom, but what we need to understand is that it communicates near native professional fluency.
Exactly. It's concise, it's results-oriented, and it shows you're focused on maximum velocity from day one.
A proactive, results-focused mindset.
Precisely. Now, imagine David's internal dialogue when he reads that line. He perceives, this person is willing to dedicate personal time to preparation so that my team can reach peak productivity faster. It fundamentally shifts the dynamic.
How so?
You move from being an employee who needs resources to being a resource ready to be deployed.
But wait, let's address a potential risk here, because a real deep dive needs to cover the flip side. What if David is so busy he just ignores the email? Or worse, what if he sends back, like, 50 documents and a 300-page manual? How does Sophie manage that pre-start information dump?
That's a crucial real-world scenario. If David ignores it, Sophie has still won the perception battle.
She tried.
She initiated, he declined or was too busy. She still looks proactive. Now, if he sends the 50 documents, the key is triage.
Right. Don't try to read everything.
No. Sophie should acknowledge receipt immediately, saying something like, thank you, David. This is immensely helpful. I will prioritize reviewing the Q4 strategy document and the team charter before Monday.
Ah, so she manages the expectation.
Yes. She's confirming that she won't read everything, but she will focus on the most strategic items. She's setting boundaries while still displaying preparation.
That's managing up beautifully. So the strategic benefit of this whole process, achieved with one short email, is profound.
It is.
You arrive on day one with internalized jargon, project history, and a mental map of what matters, all gained on your own time. You start the clock focused on integration and project knowledge, not administration.
It creates a credibility gap between you and every other hire who is just passively waiting. That initial perception that you are capable, self-aware, and highly motivated, that's psychological capital you will draw upon for the rest of your 90 days.
And you'll need it.
Especially when you need grace for those inevitable early mistakes. It changes the narrative from, we hope this hire works out,
Two, this person is already proving their value.
So the pre-game strategy gets you prepared, but the real test starts the moment you arrive. That brings us to day one, where the priority shifts entirely.
From preparation
To intensive strategic intelligence gathering.
we mentioned the internal temptation, particularly for people hired into senior or highly skilled roles, to immediately suggest improvements or even critique existing processes to prove their worth.
And the sources clearly warn that this is the most common critical error made in the first week.
It's the sound of professional naivety, really.
It is. You lack the context. You might be criticizing a solution that was championed by a powerful stakeholder who's sitting, 3 desks away.
Or suggesting an idea that failed spectacularly 6 months ago due to market conditions you don't even understand yet.
Right. You risk burning political capital before you've earned any.
So we established the primary directive for the first week, and this is crucial, the 90-10 rule.
90% listening and observation, 10% asking intelligent, high-leverage questions.
Your function is to be a sponge.
Exactly. You are absorbing organizational intelligence on 3 key levels. First, the explicit company culture. Is the dress code casual or formal? How do people address each other?
Easy stuff.
Then second, the communication cadence. Are they Slack-heavy, preferring immediate asynchronous updates, or are project updates strictly reserved for structured meetings?
And the third, most valuable level, the unwritten rule.
Yeah, the invisible stuff.
Every organization has them. The official policy might say all reports must go through the VP, but the unwritten rule might be that everyone skips the VP and goes straight to the senior director because the VP is too hands-off.
And if you rigidly follow the written rules, you're just slow. But if you understand the unwritten rules, you're efficient.
This need for observation is, I think, compounded today by remote and hybrid work.
For sure.
For someone like Sophie, if she is remote, her observation strategy has to shift. She can't observe body language in the office.
Right. Instead, she has to meticulously analyze meeting participation. Who speaks first? Who defers to whom? Who summarizes? And who is always CC'd on which threads? The listening shifts from visual cues to digital signals.
That's a great distinction. And the intelligence you gather through all this intense observation culminates in the critical first one-on-one meeting with your manager, David.
This is where you transition from passive absorption to strategic alignment. You're setting the trajectory for the remaining, 83 days?
Let's analyze the gold standard questions Sophie prepared for this meeting. These questions are designed not to ask for tasks, but to define success, identify constraints, and establish a communication flow.
Exactly.
So question number 1, focusing on success metrics. I'd love to understand what a successful first 30 days would look like from your perspective.
The tactical brilliance here is that it defines success according to David's priorities, not Sophie's assumption of her priorities.
So what happened when she asked?
David's response was illuminating. He said, "For the first month, my main expectation is for you to get up to speed with our current projects and build rapport with the team. Don't worry about delivering huge results just yet."
Hold on. That's absolutely critical information.
It is.
If Sophie had assumed she needed to close a massive project in the first 30 days, she would have prioritized her time entirely on deliverables.
Right, and she would have neglected the internal coffee chats and informal meetings required to build that rapport.
Her effort would have been fundamentally misaligned with her manager's actual measure of success.
Misaligned effort is indistinguishable from wasted effort. This question ensures she is calibrating her internal clock to the manager's expectations.
Let's play out the opposite scenario. What if David was a highly demanding manager who said, I need you to take over the underperforming project X and show me a 15% efficiency gain by day 30?
Well, then Sophie's strategy would change instantly.
Right. She'd have to shift immediately to identifying quick, actionable steps on Project X, prioritizing functional team meetings over broad, get-to-know-you chats.
The question is universally effective because it forces the manager to articulate their priority, whatever it may be. It protects the new hire from guessing.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the second question focused on communication preferences.
And in terms of communication, what's your preferred style? Do you prefer scheduled check-ins or ad hoc questions via message as they arise?
This demonstrates, I think, a profound respect for the manager's existing workflow.
It does. Managers are often drowning in pings and emails. By asking this, Sophie is saying, I want to be low friction for you.
And what did David say?
He responded that he prefers a mix with a standing 30-minute check-in every Friday for structured updates.
So now Sophie knows the rules of engagement.
Exactly. Urgent issue. Send a quick message. Non-urgent analysis or thought process. Save it for the structured Friday slot. She is integrating into his process, which makes her easier to manage, which is a massive psychological win.
The third question. This one shows organizational scope. Lastly, who are the key stakeholders I should prioritize meeting this week? I want to start understanding the cross-functional dynamics as soon as possible.
This is professional maturity in action.
How so?
Most new hires focus solely inward on my tasks and my team. Sophie is focusing outward. Who do I need to collaborate with to make my task successful?
She's demonstrating she understands the concept of influence and interdependence across departments.
She is essentially asking for a relationship map. This tells David that she is already thinking 3 moves ahead, anticipating friction points between, say, marketing and engineering, and preparing to build bridges.
It positions her not just as a doer, but as someone who understands the complexity of the organization.
So to summarize this initial phase, the new hire isn't waiting to be told, what do I do?
No.
They are actively asking, how can I best integrate and understand the landscape, and what criteria will you use to judge my success? That level of intentionality transforms the first week from orientation chaos into a strategic intelligence operation.
So Sophie has successfully moved past the initial observation phase.
Right.
She's internalized the culture and, crucially, aligned with her manager's expectations.
Right.
Now comes the trickiest part of the 90-day trajectory, the transition from learner to contributor.
This is the high wire act. You absolutely must start contributing. Your credibility depends on it. And frankly, you need to justify the investment in your salary. But you still lack the long-term context of tenure, which makes large, sweeping proposals really risky. You need a contribution that is surgical and safe.
And that brings us to the key strategy for the 30 to 90-day window, the quick win. This is your mechanism for accumulating credibility and trust without demanding massive resources or attempting organizational overhauls that you don't yet have the authority or context for.
For a quick win to be truly effective, the research suggests 3 non-negotiable criteria. First, it must be small, manageable, and autonomously completable.
Meaning you can do it yourself.
Exactly. It cannot require sign-off from 3 vice presidents. Second, it must deliver visible, tangible value. The impact should be immediately recognizable to the team or your manager.
And third,
it must demonstrate competence, attention to detail, and a collaborative spirit.
let's elaborate on the examples because the level of the quick win needs to be tailored to the seniority of the role.
Yeah, for sure. For someone newer to the professional world, the examples we saw, like organizing a messy shared folder or documenting an undocumented process, are perfect.
Why is organizing a folder so good?
Because organizing a messy shared drive, for instance, is the perfect low-stakes, quick win. It requires 0 budget, shows immaculate attention to detail, and immediately improves efficiency for the entire team when they search for files. It's visible and valuable.
And documenting tribal knowledge.
That's about formalizing a coffee break conversation into a written process. It saves future training time and demonstrates massive initiative.
But let's consider a scenario where the listener is hired into a higher level role, maybe a director of strategy. A director can't spend their first 30 days organizing folders.
Right.
So how does a quick win manifest at that level?
A quick win for a senior leader is often related to clarity and focus, which are highly visible forms of value.
Like what?
For instance, if the director observes that the team spends 3 hours a week in a recurring status meeting, that could be solved by a 15-minute asynchronous update.
A quick win is proposing a better meeting structure.
Exactly. Proposing and implementing that more efficient structure. Or, if the team's mission statement is vague, the quick win might be clarifying and distributing a concise, 1-page strategic mandate that brings immediate focus to their Q2 priorities.
That's a powerful distinction. The quick win isn't about the task's complexity. It's about the speed and visibility of its positive impact.
That's it. Whether you're tidying a folder or tidying a strategic roadmap, you're creating an early track record of competency.
And these quick wins are essential psychological anchors.
They confirm the hiring decision in small, tangible ways. They build the trust required for David, the manager, to entrust Sophie with the larger, higher-risk projects later in the 90 days or certainly in Q2.
But the sources heavily emphasize that even the best quick wins are insufficient if the new hire waits until the formal 90-day review to find out something they've been doing for 2 months is fundamentally wrong.
Which brings us to the strategy of continuous, active solicitation of feedback.
It's risk management for your career.
It is. Waiting passively means you are gambling that your busy manager will remember to proactively check in and correct your course. A professional cannot afford to take that risk.
But the nuance here is the language you use to solicit that feedback. You have to be growth-oriented, not insecure.
Yes. Let's address the common pitfall. Sounding like you're fishing for
Like
compliments.
constantly asking, am I doing okay? Or
Yeah.
do you like my work?
Exactly. You deplete your manager's energy and risk sounding needy. The perfect phrasing must invite constructive criticism while signaling confidence in your overall ability.
So what's the phrase?
The language we distilled from the research is highly effective. Now that I've had a few weeks to settle in, I'd love to get your initial thoughts on my progress. Is there anything you'd suggest I focus on or approach differently?
Let's dissect the genius of that statement.
Hmm?
It avoids the insecurity trap because it uses the word suggest.
Right. You're not asking, am I failing? You're asking, how can I optimize my approach?
It transforms the manager's role from judge to coach.
Yes, by phrasing it this way, you are signaling a growth mindset. The goal isn't just to be good, but to constantly improve and perfectly align with the manager's vision. You are demonstrating that you are receptive to coaching, which is a rare and highly valued professional trait.
And crucially, it gives the manager permission to be specific and critical. If David has been quietly annoyed that Sophie is using email too much instead of Slack.
This question is the perfect opening for him to address that minor misalignment before it becomes a major problem. This proactive solicitation allows for immediate, low-stakes course correction.
Because if you find out on day 88 that you've been focusing too much on Project A, when David secretly prioritized Project B, you've wasted 88 days.
And by seeking feedback on day 30 and day 60, you ensure your effort remains surgically focused on the manager's actual priorities.
That continuous two-way feedback loop transforms the final review from a tense, passive assessment into a productive, active conversation where there are, ideally, zero surprises.
So this meticulous preparation, it all culminates in the 90-day milestone, the formal review. And the research is insistent on this.
What's that?
This is not just a conversation where you wait for the manager to give you a grade. It is your critical opportunity to solidify your status as an indispensable long-term asset.
You must approach this review with the same preparation, diligence, and confidence you brought to the initial hiring interview.
That's right.
Walking into this meeting empty-handed, expecting the manager to verbally remember every positive thing you've done over 3 busy months is a catastrophic professional failure.
It really is. The professional must bring a structured, well-articulated document. This document acts as the agenda for the meeting, transforming the passive assessment into an active dialogue about your future trajectory, compensation, and expanded responsibilities.
You are driving the conversation, not just receiving it.
Exactly.
Let's detail the necessary components, the 3 pillars of the review document that must be prepared before you sit down with David. Pillar number 1, your accomplishment.
And this needs to be more than just a simple list of tasks completed. You have to quantify your quick wins and every significant contribution made. The focus must be on impact and tangible outcomes, articulated in clear business language.
Can you give an example?
Sure, instead of saying, I helped transition the client onboarding process, you must state, documented the legacy client onboarding process, which, based on discussions with the sales team, reduced the required training time for new sales reps by an estimated 40%,
Wow.
saving the department an average of 15 hours per month in administrative instruction.
That's the difference between saying I was busy and saying I added value.
Yeah.
You are creating an irrefutable evidence trail.
You have to. Managers, especially senior ones, process hundreds of details. Your job is to ensure that the specific, quantifiable value you brought is the main takeaway.
Which is paramount for discussions about merit increases or promotions down the line.
This evidence trail should also strategically include positive feedback you solicited earlier. You might note, received positive feedback from stakeholder X regarding the clarification of the budget tracking spreadsheet, leading to faster budget reconciliation this month. You're synthesizing all your strategic efforts into one compelling performance summary.
Okay, moving to pillar number 2, your learnings. This is the opportunity to demonstrate that your 90-10 listening phase was not just rote observation.
Right. It has to show it resulted in genuine, deep institutional insight. This signals contextual awareness. You should summarize the most important things you've absorbed about the company, the team dynamics, and the specific role.
So something like,
For instance, I've learned that the primary challenge facing the team is not technical proficiency, but the complexity of coordinating communication across 3 different time zones and 5 functional teams.
that observation shows you've moved beyond your desk and you understand the structural and cultural friction point.
You're signaling that you're prepared to navigate complexity, not just follow instructions. It shows, David, that you think like a leader.
And finally, pillar number 3, the most forward-looking component, your future goals and proposals.
This is the strategic crescendo of the meeting.
Here, you move decisively from justifying your past performance to initiating your future trajectory. You propose specific projects or initiatives you want to own for the next quarter.
And crucially, you ensure they are strategically aligned with the company's stated objectives, those Q2 goals you researched before you even started.
So what would that sound like?
For example, instead of waiting for David to assign you a task related to documentation, you might propose, building on the success of the shared folder quick win and knowing Q2 needs to prioritize scalability, I propose leading an audit of all legacy documentation to create a centralized, searchable knowledge base,
Connecting it back.
allowing us to onboard 5 new hires more efficiently next quarter.
That's masterful because you've connected a small, proven success, the quick win, to a high-level strategic goal.
Which is scalability and efficiency for Q2. You are not asking David for direction. You are proposing an investment in your leadership and initiative.
The collective outcome of bringing this meticulously prepared document is, well, it's profound.
Mm-hmm. The new hire is presented not as a passive recipient of feedback, but as an active, engaged participant who has analyzed their performance, internalized the culture, and proactively mapped out their value creation for the future.
This strategic alignment makes it undeniable that you are an indispensable member of the team, ready for the next level of responsibility. #outro. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, moving systematically from the contract signing all the way to the final review. And the takeaways, this isn't about luck or talent. It is about intentional, professional communication strategy at every single turn.
It really is.
So let's quickly solidify the 5 core phases for conquering the first 90 days and making yourself indispensable.
Okay. First, be proactive before day 1. Send that strategic email to demonstrate eagerness and secure documentation, shifting the perception from day 1 onward.
Second, listen strategically in the first week. Rigorously employ that 90-10 rule and use your first one-on-one with your manager to gather critical intelligence about success metrics and communication styles.
Third, in the first 30 to 60 days, execute a high-impact quick win. Choose a small, visible task and make sure it's tailored to your seniority to build immediate, quantifiable credibility and trust.
Fourth, continuously solicit feedback, using that confident, growth-oriented phrasing to ensure rapid course correction and perfect alignment with your manager's expectations.
Right, minimizing any surprises at the formal review.
And fifth,
Prepare diligently for the 90-day review. Bring a structured document detailing your quantified accomplishments, your key learnings, and most importantly, your strategic future proposals. This ensures you lead the dialogue about your long-term value.
the central theme is this. Success in the first 90 days is a product of mastering the communication at each stage. You are actively managing your manager's perception of you, aligning your effort with the organization's actual needs, and proving that the promise they hired is now a proven reality.
You are transitioning from someone whose worth was based on their resume and interview skills to someone whose status is cemented by demonstrated performance, strategic intent, and undeniable value contribution.
Now, for a final thought to carry forward, building on that crucial principle of strategic relationship building beyond your direct reporting line, we focused heavily on your relationship with your direct manager, David, but we know success requires cross-functional engagement. Consider this.
Okay.
If gathering intelligence and aligning expectations is key, how often should you proactively check in with a key cross-functional stakeholder who is not your manager to provide a brief, high-level status update on a shared project? And critically, what is the strategic risk to your long-term success if you wait for them to initiate contact with you first? Think about how that passive approach impacts your reputation and your access to crucial information.
Keep applying these sophisticated strategies, keep learning the unwritten rules, and keep growing your influence.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Okay, let's get into it. You've landed the job, you did the hard part, you made it through that That whole high-stakes 90-day trial period.
The pressure cooker.
Exactly, the pressure cooker. You survived. You're officially part of the team. But, and this is something I think a lot of us forget, getting the job is often just the beginning.
It's the starting line, not the finish line.
Hmm.
And that's a pivot point so many professionals miss. The whole game changes after those first 3 months.
How so?
Well, for those first 90 days, your entire mission is basically survival. It's about executing tasks, proving you're reliable. We call that C1 communication. It's functional. It's transactional.
It's, I can do the job you hired me for.
Precisely. But to build a real career, to actually move up, you have to shift into what our sources call C2 communication.
And that transition, that's really the heart of what we're talking about today, isn't it? Is the difference between being a dependable pair of hands and becoming an indispensable leader.
That's it, exactly. You have to move beyond just, filing the TPS report correctly. You have to start actually influencing the outcomes of the business. If you're chasing those promotions, if you want a seat at the table where decisions are made, you fundamentally have to change the way you talk.
So it's about language.
It's all about language, but language that reflects a change in thinking. C2 communication is proactive, it's strategic, it's focused completely on the bigger picture, the organizational impact. It's about using your expertise to help steer the ship, even if you don't have the title of captain.
And if you don't make that shift, if you're still talking like a new hire 6 months, maybe a year in,
Your career stalls. It plateaus. You become reliable, but you're never seen as a leader. Your trajectory just kind of flatlines.
the stakes are incredibly high, which is why we're doing this deep dive. The source material we're pulling from today is, it's this really exhaustive analysis of these advanced C2 level communication strategies.
And it's not theoretical, which I love. It's tactical. It's for professionals who are established and are ready to really start making their mark.
So, our mission today is to break down the actual language, the specific phrases, and the strategic thinking you need to make that leap, to go from being managed to, in a sense, managing the conversation.
Yep. We're going to focus on 3 core areas that, according to the sources, really define long-term career mastery.
Okay, so first up, we're tackling the art of influencing decisions when you have zero formal authority. How to get things done without being the boss.
Then second, we'll get into navigating professional disagreements, because they're going to happen. The key is turning that conflict into something productive.
Instead of just a fight.
Right, into a better idea. And finally, we're going to unpack what is, it's arguably the toughest skill of all, mastering managing up.
Ah, the big one. Setting boundaries, protecting your focus.
And doing it in a way that actually makes your boss respect you more, not less.
This is huge. It feels like it's time to retire that reactive language of the new hire and start adopting the proactive vocabulary of a leader.
Let's do it. Let's start making you indispensable.
Okay, section 1. Influencing without authority. This feels like the first major hurdle for anyone who's ambitious but isn't in management,
Oh, absolutely. You're good at your job, you're in the trenches, and you see a better way to do something. A huge opportunity for improvement.
You've got the solution right there.
But you don't have the official title to just tell everyone, hey, we're doing it this way now. If you try that, if you lead with a command,
You're just asking for trouble. You create all this unnecessary political friction.
and that friction is almost always about status. People don't hear your great idea. They hear a challenge. They hear you, someone at their level or even below, trying to tell them what to do. It feels like an attack on their competence.
So being a true senior professional is about getting people on board using just the strength of your idea.
And, crucially, the brilliance of how you present it. It has to be persuasive, not prescriptive. Tact, as the sources emphasize over and over, is your single most valuable asset here.
Let's make this concrete with the case study from the material. We've got Sophie. She's been with the company a while, she's respected, and she spots this major recurring inefficiency.
Right. Her colleague, Mark, spends 3 hours, 3 solid hours, every single Friday, manually compiling the team's weekly report.
I can feel the pain just thinking about that. 3 hours a week, that's 12 hours a month.
It's almost 2 full workdays. A huge chunk of a skilled professional's time spent on what is essentially manual data entry.
It's a massive opportunity for improvement, but as you said, it's a political minefield.
A total minefield. Because this is Mark's process. He either built it or he inherited it and has been doing it forever. To him, it's his domain. It's his contribution.
So any suggestion to change it, especially if it's delivered clumsily, isn't just a process comment.
It's a personal critique. He hears, your process is slow and outdated. which translates to "you are inefficient." Sophie wants to suggest automation, but if she uses that basic C1 language, she's going to alienate Mark completely.
And what would that C1 language sound like? The bad example.
It would be something blunt and directive. Like, "Mark, that report takes way too long. We should just automate it. There are tools that could do this in 5 minutes."
Oof. Yeah, I can see how that would land.
Terribly. Mark's immediate internal reaction is pure defense. "It takes a long time because it's thorough. You don't understand the complexity. Who are you to tell me how to do my job?"
And just like that, the idea is dead.
The idea is dead. You've damaged your relationship with a colleague, and now you have a reputation for being arrogant or critical.
Huh.
The cost of getting this wrong is huge.
Okay, so let's pivot. Let's talk about the C2 approach. The source material breaks this down into tactics. Tactic 1 is validate, don't undermine.
This is the non-negotiable first step.
Mhm.
So in the scenario, Mark has just finished presenting an update on his report in a team meeting. Sophie has to start with affirmation.
And the phrasing is really specific, right?
Very. The recommended language is, "Thanks for walking us through that, Mark." And then immediately followed by, "Building on what you just shared."
Let's break that down. Thanks for walking us through that. What is that actually doing?
It's acknowledgement. It's respect. It says, "I see the work you do, and I value it." It costs nothing, but it pays massive psychological dividends.
And the second part, building on what you've just shared, that feels really strategic.
It's a linguistic bridge. It's brilliant. Sophie isn't presenting a competing idea. She's framing her suggestion as the next logical evolution of Mark's own work.
So she's not saying, your idea is bad, here's my better one.
No, she's saying, "Your work is the foundation, and I have an idea for the next floor we can build on top of it together." It reframes the entire interaction.
It's like moving from opposite sides of a debate table to sitting on the same side, looking at the problem together.
That's the perfect analogy.
Mm.
The tone shifts instantly from accusation, "Your process is inefficient," to collaboration, "How can we get even more value from the great work you're already doing?"
Because you've satisfied that very human need to feel seen and respected first.
You have to. Once that foundation of respect is there, then, and only then, can Sophie introduce her idea using tactic 2. Frame the idea as a question,
Not a directive.
never a directive. The C2 phrasing the source recommends is incredibly precise. I was wondering if we've considered automating parts of that data pool.
I was wondering if, that phrase alone seems to do so much work in softening the entire proposal. The source analysis really focuses on that. Why is it so powerful?
Because it's all about managing perception. When you say, "We should automate this," you're making a declaration. You're projecting certainty, which can easily be read as arrogance.
Especially when you're talking about someone else's work.
Especially then.
Hmm.
And a declaration invites an immediate counter-argument. The other person's brain automatically starts thinking of all the reasons why you're wrong.
But I was wondering if John doesn't do that.
No, it does the opposite. It frames the idea as a musing, an exploration. It shows intellectual humility. It says, "This is just a thought I'm having, and I want to invite you into this thought process with me."
It also gives them an outright. It respects their expertise.
Yeah.
By asking, have we considered this, you're acknowledging that maybe they have. Maybe Mark already looked into this and found a really good reason not to do it.
Yes. You're giving him credit for having institutional knowledge that you might not. It makes the discussion a collaborative discovery, not a top-down command. It opens the door instead of slamming it shut.
Let's consider the alternative here for a second. Even a slightly better C1 approach could fail. Something like, hey, I did some research and Tool X can automate this report.
Right, even that fails. Because while you sound proactive, the certainty, the "I have the answer," implies you've bypassed consultation. You're telling your manager, David, and your peer, Mark, what the solution is without their input.
And that creates resistance just based on the process alone, even if the idea is good.
People resist being told, but they support what they help create. The C2 question, "I was wondering if," brings them into the creation process.
Okay, so Sophie has done this perfectly. She's validated Mark. She's gently floated the idea as a question. Now the focus shifts to the manager, David.
Right, David's the decision maker. And he's immediately intrigued by the idea of saving 12 hours of Mark's time a month. That's a huge win.
But his brain isn't just thinking about the benefit, he's thinking about the costs.
The hidden costs, the risk. Who has to research this new tool? Who pays for it? Who implements it? What if it breaks something else? What's the workload for me?
This is where Sophie has to be one step ahead. This brings us to tactic 3, which the source calls the clincher.
Exactly. minimizing the perceived risk and workload for the manager. She has to anticipate every single one of David's anxieties and address them before he even have to ask.
And her strategic offer is just a masterclass in C2 communication. She says, if it's helpful, I'd be happy to put together a brief one-page proposal outlining the tool and the potential ROI. No more than an hour of my time this week.
Let's just pause and dissect that one sentence.
Hmm.
It's packed with strategic reassurances.
Okay, first part, I'd be happy to put together.
She's taking ownership. She's volunteering to do the work. The burden isn't on David. It isn't on Mark. It's on her. That immediately lowers the barrier.
Then a brief one-page proposal.
Meticulous expectation management. David now knows he isn't signing up to read a 30-page dissertation. He's committing to, 5 minutes of his time to review this? It's a tiny investment.
And including potential ROI, return on investment. That's speaking his language.
Absolutely. It frames this whole thing not as a little technical tweak, but as a smart business decision. It elevates the conversation.
And the final piece, which I think is just brilliant, no more than an hour of my time this week.
That's the risk cap. That's the clincher. She's telling David, look, if this idea turns out to be a dead end, the total cost to the company was 1 hour of my time. It's an incredibly low-risk bet.
She makes it almost impossible for him to say no.
She makes it incredibly easy for him to say yes. But notice, he's only saying yes to the next small step, the proposal, not the entire project. This is key. The source is clear. Successful influencers don't ask for permission to change the world overnight. They ask for permission to run a tiny, low-risk experiment to prove the change is worth making.
And she also makes sure to mention that this frees Mark up to do more high-level analysis, not just data entry.
Yes, tying it back to a strategic team benefit. It's not just about saving time, it's about reallocating that time to something that creates more value. So for you, the listener, if you have an idea, this is your template. Don't present it as a complaint. Present it as a low-risk, high ROI investigation you're willing to lead.
What if the manager still says no? What if David says, great idea, Sophie, but we just don't have the bandwidth right now?
That's a great question. And a C1 response would be to get discouraged, maybe complain to a coworker. A C2 response maintains the long-term influence.
Which would be?
Something like, I completely understand, David. Priorities are tight right now. I'll keep this proposal drafted, and maybe we can revisit it next quarter. I have a feeling the ROI will only get more compelling over time.
Wow. So you respect the decision, but you also signal your continued belief in the idea's value. You're playing the long game.
That's C2 thinking. It's always the long game.
All right, that brings us to section 2. As you get more integrated into a team, as your influence grows, disagreements are just. They're inevitable.
They're not only inevitable, they're necessary. If everyone on a team agrees on everything all the time, you're probably not thinking hard enough. There's no innovation.
But the C1 approach to conflict is usually one of two things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Either you avoid it at all costs because you don't want to rock the boat,
Or you engage with it like a personal battle that you have to win. Both are destructive. The C2 approach, which the source material really champions, is to see disagreement as an opportunity.
an opportunity for what?
An opportunity to forge a better outcome. It's about taking two different ideas, maybe even two good ideas, and synthesizing them into one superior solution. The goal is always a better collective result, not a personal victory.
And the core principle, the absolute foundation for this has to be challenge the idea, not the person.
It's the golden rule. You must surgically separate the concept from the colleague. The moment Mark, in our next scenario, feels like he is being attacked, you've lost. All productive communication just stops.
So let's get into that scenario. The source calls it the creative direction conflict. Mark comes in with a big, bold idea for a new client campaign.
Right, he's proposing something humorous and meme-based. His goal is clear. He wants it to go viral. He wants maximum social media engagement.
And he's excited about it.
He's passionate, which makes this even more delicate. Because Sophie, who has a deep understanding of this particular client, knows this is a problem. The client has been crystal clear that their brand is all about a premium brand identity, sophistication.
So you have this classic conflict. Mark is pushing for what he sees as effective virality, and Sophie is guarding the brand integrity.
And if she just comes in hot and says, no, that's a silly idea, the client will hate it, what happens?
You crush his enthusiasm. You make him feel foolish. And he's probably not going to bring you his next big idea.
Exactly. You've won the battle but lost the war. So she has to use the C2 playbook. Tactic 1. Start with affirmation and admiration.
She has to validate his intent first.
Before she critiques the idea, she has to validate the thinking behind it. So her opening line is something like, I see where you're coming from, Mark, and I really admire the creative ambition.
That phrase, I really admire the creative ambition. It feels important. It's not just empty flattery, is it?
No, it's a strategic deposit in the relationship bank. She's explicitly complimenting his qualities, his creativity, his ambition, before she questions the specific application of those qualities.
No, so he hears the compliment first.
He hears that she respects him as a creative professional. It establishes common ground. It makes him far less likely to get defensive when she introduces her concern because she's already proven she's not attacking him personally.
Okay, so she's laid that groundwork. Now she has actually introduced the point of disagreement. This is tactic 2, softening the reservation.
Right. A C1 response would be blunt. That's a bad idea. A C2 communicator uses a very specific linguistic formula. She says, my only reservation is whether a purely humorous tone aligns with the client's premium brand identity.
Let's pull that apart. The word only seems to be doing a lot of work there.
Immense work. By saying my only reservation, she's signaling that she has considered his idea from all angles, found a lot to like about it, and has isolated just one single point of potential friction.
So it sounds thoughtful, not like a gut reaction.
Precisely. It sounds measured and strategic. And then look at how she frames the conflict itself.
She doesn't say, I think it's wrong.
No. She makes a conflict external and objective. The problem isn't her opinion versus Mark's opinion. The problem is Mark's idea versus the client's premium brand identity, which is a known external constraint.
She's basically turned it from a personal argument into a shared puzzle to solve.
That's the essence of it. The puzzle is, how do we achieve Mark's goal of virality within the client's non-negotiable brand constraints? It's not my way versus your way anymore.
Now, the source adds a nice little wrinkle here. Mark, being passionate, pushes back a bit. He said something like, but sophistication is boring. We need to get people to stop scrolling.
A very realistic response. And this is a critical moment. The C1 temptation is to get into a semantic debate. No, sophistication isn't boring if you do it right.
A definition war.
Which goes nowhere.
Yeah.
Sophie, using C2, completely sidesteps that trap. She immediately validates his pushback. She'll say, that's a very valid point, Mark. You're absolutely right. We need to capture attention and ensure it's shareable.
So she agrees with his goal capturing attention, even though she disagrees with his proposed method.
Yes. She finds the point of agreement, which builds another bridge. And that bridge leads directly into tactic 3, collaborative solution seeking.
This is where she pivots from identifying the problem to proposing a synthesis.
She does it with a question that transforms the entire conversation. She asks, I wonder, is there a middle ground we could explore? Something that gets us the attention we need, but still feels true to the client's brand.
And she even offers a starting point for that middle ground.
Yes, the source gives her the line. Perhaps a clever, witty campaign that feels sophisticated, but still has a humorous edge.
That's the synthesis right there. She's found a way to satisfy both needs.
She took Mark's core, desire, humor, engagement, and she refined it with the client's core constraint sophistication. She didn't kill his idea. She made it better. She made it executable.
This is such a high-level skill. You're not just a critic. You're a strategic partner who improves the ideas of others.
And when you can do that consistently, your value to the organization skyrockets. For anyone listening, practicing this moves you from being seen as an adversary in creative discussions to being a synthesizer. And that is a huge marker of leadership potential.
Can we apply this to a more technical disagreement for a second? Let's say not a marketing campaign, but a software choice.
Sure. Same principles apply. Let's say Mark wants to build a new feature using Python because it's fast to develop. But Sophie knows the company's entire long-term infrastructure is built on Java, and IT won't support anything else.
The C1 response would be,
we can't use Python. IT only supports Java. It's a dead end. It's dismissive.
And the C2 response?
It would start with validation. Mark, I totally get why you're suggesting Python. The speed of development would be a huge win right now. I admire that you're focused on getting this done quickly.
Affirmation first, then the reservation.
My only reservation is thinking about the long-term maintenance costs and how it fits into our standard Java stack. Again, externalizing the conflict to an objective constraint.
And finally, the collaborative question.
I wonder, Is there a way we could maybe leverage Python for a rapid prototype or a proof of concept while planning for a full build in Java to ensure it's scalable and supportable down the line?
Okay, you find the yes and instead of the no but.
You always look for the synthesis. Remember, disagreement, when you handle it this way, actually builds respect. Handle it poorly, and you just burn through your political capital with nothing to show for it.
Okay, this is the big one. Section 3. We've talked about influencing peers. We've talked about challenging ideas. Now I have to talk about what the source calls the apex C2 skill, managing your manager.
Or managing up. And this is so critical because it's not just about getting ahead, it's about survival. It's the skill that prevents burnout, protects your ability to do high-quality work, and believe it or not, it completely changes how your manager sees you.
I think the default for most high achievers is just to say yes. You want to be seen as capable as a team player, so you take on everything.
And that's a trap, because you believe that being busy equals being valuable. But the reality is, if you're overcommitted, you're not doing one thing well, you're doing 5 things poorly.
And your manager, David, in our scenarios, might have no idea.
He's completely blind to it. He's creating these priority conflicts on your plate, but from his perspective, he's just assigning tasks. You're the only one who feels the pain, and by saying yes to everything, you're hiding critical information from him.
You're hiding the fact that his requests are creating a strategic problem.
Which is the difference between being a compliant doer and a strategic partner. A doer says yes and suffers in silence. A partner makes the trade-offs visible and forces a strategic conversation about priorities.
So this all comes down to what the source calls the trade-off principle.
Exactly. The rule is you never, ever just say no to your manager. That's insubordinate. Instead, you say, yes, and here are the trade-offs we need to discuss.
The goal isn't to get out of the work.
Not at all. The goal is to make your entire workload and the conflicts within it crystal clear to your manager so that they can make an informed strategic decision about how your time, a finite company resource, is best allocated.
It's important to understand David's perspective here, too. He's not trying to burn you out.
Not usually, no. He's under his own pressures. He just came from a meeting where his boss told him some new report is the most important thing in the world. So in that moment, to him, it is the most important thing. He has organizational blind spots.
And your job as a C2 communicator is to be his eyes on the ground, to give him the data he's missing.
Without sounding like you're complaining, that's the art of it.
Let's get to the case study. It's the end of the day. David rushes over to Sophie's desk with an urgent new task. He needs a full, competitive analysis report, and he needs it by tomorrow morning.
And Sophie's heart sinks because her plate is already overflowing with 3 other major high-stakes projects.
Let's start, as always, with the C1 response, the thing you should never, ever do.
The career-limiting move. It would be something like, I can't, David. I'm totally swamped. There's no way I can get that done.
It's honest. It's true. But what does David hear?
He doesn't hear Sophie is a diligent employee who is managing a heavy workload. He hears Sophie can't handle the pressure. He hears Sophie is not a team player. He hears Sophie is complaining. It frames the entire issue as her personal capacity problem.
It's a complaint, not a strategic conversation.
And it forces him into a position of either backing down or pulling rank. It's a dead end.
Okay, so let's deep dive into the C2 response. The source outlines a very clear 3-part structure.
It's a formula, and you need to memorize it. Part 1 is acknowledgement and validation. Sophie has to start by showing she's on his team.
So she says,
Thanks for trusting me with this, David. It sounds like a high-priority initiative.
so simple, but it does so much. She's immediately aligned with his goal. She's not resisting. She's validating the importance of the task and his decision to give it to her.
She's on his side. That's step 1. Now, part 2. State the facts and make priorities visible. And this has to be concrete.
No vague, I'm busy.
Never. Vague is a complaint. Specific is data. She says, to give you a clear picture of my current plate, my top 3 priorities right now are the Q3 campaign launch, fixing that critical analytics dashboard, and finishing the proposal for the new client.
And these are all things David knows about and cares about.
He probably assigned them to her. So she's not just listing tasks, she's reminding him of existing strategic commitments. She's giving him a map of her current workload using projects he himself has deemed important.
This step alone is probably revolutionary for people who deal with managers who just assign things without thinking. It forces an awareness of the current reality.
It removes his blind spot. And now, with the full picture in front of him, she moves to part 3. This is the pivot, the question that changes the power dynamic.
She frames it as a shared strategic choice.
Yes. She asks, to ensure I can give this competitive analysis the focus it deserves, could you help me clarify what I should deprioritize? Which of these other projects should I put on the back burner to accommodate this new report?
That is the masterstroke.
It's everything. She's not saying no, she's saying yes, but she's also saying, I am a high-quality strategic asset, and I refuse to do poor work by juggling too many things. Therefore, since all four of these items are now your priorities, only you, as the strategic leader, can make the call about the correct sequence.
She has completely reframed the problem. It is no longer Sophie is too busy.
It is now, David has a resource allocation puzzle to solve. And if the Q3 campaign launch is delayed because he told her to focus on this new report, the responsibility for that outcome is his. It was a conscious management decision, not an employee's failure.
This is the kind of conversation that builds massive trust and respect. It shows you're thinking like a manager yourself. You're not just worried about your to-do list, you're worried about the strategic deployment of company resources.
Which is exactly the kind of thinking that gets you promoted.
But I have to ask the question everyone's thinking. What if David is, a bad manager? A micromanager who just says, I don't care, so if you figure it out, I need all four.
A very real possibility.
Yeah.
That requires an escalation, another layer of C2 communication. You don't give up, you maintain your composure, and you pivot from listing projects to quantifying trade-offs.
So she would say.
Understood, David. I will do my absolute best to make progress on all four. Just so we're aligned on expectations based on the hours required, tackling all four simultaneously will likely mean the new client proposal won't be as polished as we'd like, or it might push the Q3 launch back by about 2 days. Given that trade-off, which area can absorb a slight delay or quality dip?
Wow, you're introducing objective consequences.
Yeah.
Data, a 2-day delay,
Yeah.
quality reduction. You're forcing him to make a calculated business decision.
You're moving the conversation from his opinion, just do it, to objective reality. Here are the quantifiable consequences. A good manager has to respond to that. And even if he's a bad manager and still says do it all perfectly, you've now documented the risk. The responsibility for the inevitable slip in quality is now squarely on his shoulders.
And over time, he learns. He learns that asking you to do something isn't just a simple command, it's the start of a strategic conversation.
You are training your manager how to use you effectively. This isn't just about setting boundaries for your mental health, although it does that. It's about ensuring your talent is always applied to the most valuable work at any given moment.
I have a quick story about this. Early in my career, Friday afternoon, my boss gave me 2 urgent tasks. One was to close a huge deal. The other was a really tedious compliance report. I just said, yep, got it, and worked all weekend.
The C1 response.
Textbook C1. I got the deal done, but I was exhausted and made a tiny error on the compliance report. That tiny error created a massive 2-week administrative nightmare for the whole team.
And when your boss asked about it,
I got defensive. I said, well, I was trying to close that big deal at the same time. I made it sound like an excuse for my own failure to manage my time.
but in reality, it was a resource allocation failure that you enabled by not speaking up.
Exactly. The C2 response, which I wish I'd known then, would have been, happy to tackle both. To get the deal closed today requires my full focus this afternoon. That means to do the compliance report with the accuracy it needs, I'll have to do it Monday morning. Which of those timelines presents the bigger risk to the business?
You would have forced the trade-off.
I failed to force the trade-off. My mistake wasn't the typo on the report. My mistake was a communication failure 5 days earlier.
And that's the core insight of this entire deep dive. These aren't soft skills. They are hard, strategic, high-leverage communication skills that directly determine the quality and impact of your work.
Okay, let's bring this all together. This deep dive has really been about that journey from being a reliable employee to becoming a strategic, indispensable professional.
It's about shifting your communication from that functional C1 level to the strategic C2 level that defines people who don't just have jobs, but who actively shape their organizations.
So, to recap those 3 pillars. First, influencing without authority. It starts with validation, building on what you've shared, and then you frame your idea as a low-risk collaborative question.
Right. I was wondering if we've considered, and you always volunteer to do the initial legwork to minimize the perceived risk for your manager.
Second, navigating disagreements. The golden rule is to separate the idea from the person. You start with affirmation, I really admire the creative ambition, before you introduce your point of friction.
And you frame that friction as an objective problem to be solved. Using that softened phrase, my only reservation is, then you immediately pivot to finding a better synthesized solution together.
And finally, that apex skill, managing up. You have to abandon the idea of just saying no or complaining that you're busy.
You adopt the trade-off principle. You make your current strategic commitments visible with specific, factual data. And then you frame the conflict as a shared resource allocation problem, forcing your manager to make a strategic choice on what to deprioritize.
These aren't just tactics. They really are a blueprint for changing your role from someone who just reacts to orders to someone who proactively guides decisions.
That's the whole bowl game. It's the difference between people who just do their job and people who get promoted because they consistently demonstrate that they think and speak like leaders long before they ever get the title.
So for everyone listening, we want to leave you with a final thought, a challenge for the week ahead.
We want you to think honestly about these three areas we've discussed: influencing change, navigating disagreements, and managing your boundaries and workload. Which one of those three currently causes you the most stress or friction in your professional life?
Be honest with yourself. Where are you defaulting to that C1 communication?
And once you've identified that area, your challenge is to find one, just one, opportunity in the next few days to consciously apply the C2 strategic reframing technique.
So instead of stating your personal opinion or complaining about a personal problem like being too busy, reframe it. Reframe it as a strategic choice that needs your colleagues or your manager's input. Use those phrases we've talked about.
Go out there and practice this language. Start deliberately shaping the conversations that will, in turn, deliberately shape your career. We really appreciate you joining us for this deep dive.
Until next time, all the best in your professional journey.